Look at these numbers: 62 shots, 0 goals. It is the most barren attacking record in World Cup history since 1966. Coming into the tournament, the Turkish national team looked like a sure bet to make a deep run. This squad was widely backed as the tournament's true dark horse, powered by an emerging golden generation of elite European talent. Millions of fans in Istanbul woke up at 6 a.m. to watch their team, only to experience a heartbreaking collapse. They were essentially catfished by a team that looked brilliant during their qualifiers. Which raises a structural question. How does a squad maintain absolute offensive dominance, fire off dozens of attempts, and still suffer one of the most embarrassing group stage exits in modern football history? The answer is that total shot volume is a highly misleading metric. Hitting a ball toward the net 62 times doesn't equal good football. It's actually a massive red flag breakdown. The breakdown started in Vancouver against Australia, where Turkey registered an absurd 30 shots without finding the back of the net once. This chart highlights just how extreme that failure is. When we compare historical maximum shot volumes across World Cup history against actual goals scored, that 30-shot column stands completely alone. No team has ever attempted that many strikes in a single match and walked away empty-handed. The root of this inefficiency traces directly back to coach Vincenzo Montella and his rigid insistence on using a false nine, a tactic where the central attacker drops back into the midfield instead of staying up top to wrestle with defenders. In theory, it creates passing lanes. In practice, Turkey's smaller attackers were repeatedly running headfirst into the mountainous, immovable center backs of the Australian defense. The result on the pitch was exactly what you would expect. The Socceroos absorbed the weak pressure and handed Turkey a shocking 2-0 defeat. Montella refused to adapt his system. Instead of bringing on a true physical striker to disrupt the backline, he left his team to accumulate a massive volume of low-quality, empty-calorie shots. Things somehow got worse during their critical second match in San Francisco. A mere 64 seconds after kickoff, Paraguay scored the fastest goal of the entire tournament. But shortly after, Turkey was handed a massive lifeline. Paraguay was reduced to 10 men for a full 60 minutes, giving the Turkish side a huge numerical advantage. Looking at the match data, Turkey dominated. They accumulated 50 box touches, fired 32 shots, and built an expected goals rating of 2.12. Yet when we add actual goals scored to the bottom of the graph, it's a completely flat line. The underlying data hid the reality on the grass. Paraguay simply deployed a low defensive block and aggressively double-teamed Turkey's young stars, like Kenan Yildiz and Real Madrid's Arda Güler, who received zero structural support from their formation. Failing to break down a 10-man defense for an hour exposes a total lack of creativity and a severe deficit in mental strength. The reaction back home was immediate and ruthless, with the Turkish media demanding answers from the coaching staff and the players. Instead of taking accountability, team captain Hakan Çalhanoğlu went to the press and deflected blame. He made the baffling claim that Turkey actually played better football than their opponents, entirely ignoring the scoreline. Dominating possession means nothing when the tactical system works against the players, and leaders refuse to accept the reality of their failure. Heading into their final group stage match against the United States, fans still held on to a tiny sliver of hope for a miraculous progression to the knockouts. This flowchart explains why that hope was mathematically impossible. For 2026, FIFA updated the tiebreaker sequence, prioritizing head-to-head records over goal difference. When we feed Turkey's losses to Australia and Paraguay into this logic, pathways to advancement instantly turn red. They were locked out. Before they even stepped onto the pitch for their third match, Turkey was dead on arrival, entirely because they failed to convert any of those 62 prior chances. In a final bit of cruel irony, Turkey won that dead rubber match, scoring 3 goals against an American B team. They executed their offense perfectly only when the stakes were completely removed. Tournament football ruthlessly punishes tactical stubbornness. A team that waited 24 years to return leaves with a squandered golden generation and a permanent, embarrassing record.